What do you think it is that's captured? Because clearly, look, 35K show up. It was loud. It feels like an arrival. There is a difference even between like, okay, they got back to 500. Ooh, Casey Schmidt, that's fun. All right, Bailey, Matos. And now all of a sudden it's like, hold on a second. Those are all these side stories that are in there to sort of make you feel better about the fact that you're not where you want to be in the standings. Well, now you're where you want to be in the standings. And the crowd showed up and it thumped. So what is it? What's the thing that has you excited about where the Giants are? Young guys?
Yeah.
The standings?
Yeah.
What?
The old guys? Yeah. The pitching staff? Sure. The twins doing their little twinny things.
And twins.
You love that. The closer throwing 102.
Oh, brother.
The perfectly chiseled manager with a 3.7. Actually, I'm down to 3.6% body fat with the hand tats. So I'm at Father's Day at the Phil's house, not the Fulfill, the future, the current, the Kafil.
Yeah, it's
he's the current father-in-law. Hopefully, he's the Pufil, the permanent father-in-law. And I overhear my sister-in-law mentioning for the first time in her life, ooh, Gabe Kapler, the Giants manager, he's a pretty good-looking guy. And my wife looks at her sister like, hello,
yeah,
Johnny come lately. But
even your wife was like, obviously.
Totally. Yeah. I've been a fan since his days as a player. But that sort of notion, and, you know, my wife and my father-in-law more invested in Giants baseball now than they were 2 weeks ago. And they're fans.
Sure.
They're fans of the product. But going into the year and going back to April, the sentiment was Farhan has done nothing, and Kapler is a spreadsheet nincompoop, and this team's got no stars. They've got no talent. They're third place at best. Why do I care about the Giants? And I'm paraphrasing, and none of them had said this, but this is the feeling that I got from the family. And now we skip ahead to Father's Day, and it's, boy, that manager is handsome. And these guys are pretty exciting. And Yaz and Lamont Wade Jr. and Casey Schmidt. And who's that catcher?
Right.
He seems to like to hit from both sides of that oblong object. And I'm paraphrasing, and I don't want to make my in-laws sound like they're not locked in, because they are. But that's the answer, Mark, because you've got, if you look down the roster, and I asked you this during the changeover, who's having a bad year?
Who's having a bad year?
Like, who's having the worst year on the Giants?
Well, the answer in terms of expectations was Haniger. And I don't even know if we're going to see him the rest of the year, to be honest with you.
Right, back in August.
Yeah.
In theory.
In theory. But this one sounds a little complex. We'll talk to Dr. Feely about it.
Yeah.
I think there's a chance that we don't even see him again. Plus, he could become, you could get to the point where he's like, I'm ready. And the Giants are like, well, we're in first place, and we've got Luis Matos. So
you're not ready
about that arm injury. That's possible.
But in terms of like anybody on the roster,
Crawford would have been. He's been good though for this win streak.
That's my point. But he's having a bad year,
not a great year,
but he's assimilated to his new role beautifully.
Totally. No, the people that, and this is what you want. The people who were having bad years, they kind of worked their way away from it. Joey Bart, bad year, send him to the minors. David VR, bad year, is not working. Okay, we'll put him in the minors, and we'll use one of our other 27 third basemen, it feels like they have. From J.D. Davis to Casey Schmidt to Wilmer Flores. Nobody. Nobody who's in there or supposed to be in there on the daily is having a bad year, and that includes some brand new guys, and that's why it's almost like, if you ask me why I'm so excited about this, there's a phrase that, by the way, I'd love to, this is just me, I'd love to replace nothing like it with something else. Giants baseball, it's working. That's why I'm so excited.
You can go ahead and send that down.
It's working, okay? Because this is coming at us from multiple directions. This is our plucky little Farhan finds.
Oh, boy.
Are playing well. And our draft picks are working. And then the standard bearers that were already in play. Logan Webb, Camilo Doval, those guys, sustainable. They're proving themselves to be sustainable. Whatever the process is, it now has new legs that it didn't even have 2 years ago, and it's working.
Didn't have legs 2 months ago.
Not yet.
Even.
You're right. It didn't.
And I played a bunch of the cuts because you and Larry did such a great job with Farhan on Friday. And I was playing, as I'm playing the cuts yesterday, because I was in the power chair, and so I was able to take the calls and play the sound and the drops and the whole deal. And I'm listening to his sound, and there were unmistakable chuckles in there. And I was like, I hope Mark in real time on Friday was appreciating.
Oh, every single one of them.
Right.
Every single one of them. If you were watching on YouTube, you could see us react to them. I even took a whirl after the interview was over at a Farhan chuckle impersonation sensation.
That's a buck.
I didn't feel good about it.
That's a buckle.
It didn't work. But, I've watched, who's our guy? The guy that does Madden. Frank Caliendo.
Sure.
I've watched him talk about, I think some impressions, they just, like Kapler, I can just do that.
Yeah, you're gifted with that.
But Frank is like, no, this is how you practice, because he's like, you can impersonate anyone.
If you practice,
you practice.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of practice to do with Farhan.
Okay.
And you've been doing it already for a little while.
Just the chuckle.
Yeah,
and I was playing the cuts yesterday and listening to, obviously the content was good, but thinking about Farhan in terms of where he is right now, and I can imagine him sitting in his office and just basking in this, because this is what he envisioned. Everything except for the big free agent, which, you know what? You may not need it right now because all these other guys are just dominating.
You don't need it. I'm not here to say that you don't want it, right? I'm not going to have that. I would call it a disingenuous take after I was sitting here walking my dog, screaming into my phone when Correa went the other way. I was mad. We were all mad. I'm not going to say that. If Shohei Ohtani wants to join this team next year, yeah, you're welcome. Yes, we've got the money. Yes, we've got the lineup spot. All of that. The answer is yes. But no, in this moment, when you go to the ballpark, are you okay, I'm 40 and 32, and there's 35K here, and everyone's yelling, but I'm not really into it because they don't have anybody who has a jersey that I want.
Exactly.
No, it doesn't feel like that at all.
They've got 5 guys you want a jersey of right now.
Or 5 guys that make you stop and go, okay, like Matos, that was his first home game. I'm not going to the bathroom when Matos comes up. I want to see this, right? I'm going tonight, and it's like, what if this guy is a 12-year giant and a perennial all-star, and I'm there for his first ever home run? What if that happens tonight? What if? Okay? What if is a great question, right? We got 2 sons who are coming with me and Christy to this game tonight, and it's a what if. When you're a kid, what if they score 15 again?
Right.
What if they hit 4 home runs? What if there's a walk-off? What if there's a splash? That's the way it works for a kid, and I think even for us adults, it feels that way a little bit right now for the Giants. I'm told that we have Farhan still up on the board and a potential Farhan chuckle in his response to anyone who would like them to trade Alex Cobb.
I hear some of the rumblings about selling, and both as an executive and as a fan of sports, I don't understand that at all. I mean, when your team has a chance to get in the playoffs, and we know anything can happen in the playoffs, you'd like your team to fight for that, and that's sort of my mindset. That's our collective mindset. We think we have a good team to play with. Anybody, this is going to be a big test for us, not just this weekend, but next week when we're back at home playing the Padres and the Diamondbacks. Got a lot of competition in our division. And, this time of year, the trade deadline is a month and a half away. And a lot of times the team and the team's performance dictates your strategy. But I hope we're in it, and I hope we're in a position where, look, the perfect scenario is you've got a really well-balanced team. You don't have any weaknesses. You don't have to go out there and plug holes and, compromise the great farm system development that we've had. But if we're in a position where there are pieces we need to fill or guys we think can help us, we want to be in a position where we're pursuing those guys.
All right, so you actually got a chuckle. You got a chuckle and a half.
Oh, it's so good.
And first of all, I love people who crack themselves up. I have been known to be one of those people. I think you are too.
Yeah.
I like people who crack themselves up. Farhan works himself into this laughter when no one said anything.
Right.
Nobody said anything funny. In fact, I think my question was, hey, this Kruger weirdo who's sitting next to me, he thinks you should trade somebody at the deadline. In other words, shout out Rocky, you can't win. And what do you think of that, Farhan? It's not a funny question. But off he went and cracked himself up, and that was a belly chuckle.
That was a
good
of them,
one.
yeah. Talking about trading Alex Wood at the deadline. And, I don't think it's as laughable of a notion as he was making it seem like, because if Kyle Harrison comes up and he is suddenly going to supplant Alex Cobb in the rotation.
Both. You need both. Why would you you don't need 2 starters to go into the playoffs. You need 4.
We've got Keaton Wynn now, Mark. And Keaton Wynn is a guy
who still never started a game in the bigs.
Right, but he right now is more reliable than Mania or Stripling.
Well, I'm not worried about those guys at all.
Right.
If you what you would love, you want a perfect scenario for the Giants to make the playoffs. Okay, Logan Webb starts a playoff game.
Yeah. Kyle
Harrison is up. He's ready to start playoff games. Alex Cobb is pitching well. Maybe DeSclafani figures it out, or maybe you acquire more at the deadline,
right.
Or maybe Keaton Wynn is a part of that picture too. But you need more, not less.
Yeah, I mean you need 4 at the most in the postseason. You don't need 5. You need 4.
You might.
I mean, no one goes to a 5-man rotation in the postseason.
Not a rotation, but an injury could happen.
Sure.
Or you need someone to back up guys if you go out and have 2 bad innings and you got to yank them early because it's the playoffs. I guess it's just funny to me because if you were said, hey, there are some teams out there who would really like Alex Cobb at the deadline. I was like, I know one of them, the San Francisco Giants. That would be a great place for Alex Cobb to be for the stretch run.
I mean, it'd be all right. He'd be your number 3 starter.
If you
had Harrison up, he'd be your number 4. And at that point, he becomes more superfluous than you think.
I mean, why would you look around at other teams? They're sitting here right now. They get the 4th best record in the National League. They get the 2nd best run differential in the National League. Why would you be looking to deal to somebody else to contend? You are the definition of contending.
Right. I just don't know if Alex Cobb is that good when you get into a short series and you get into a playoff series. I think that if you had Kyle Harrison, more electric stuff, you'd be more apt to use him than you would Alex Cobb.
Oh, I'll agree with that. But Alex can have game 3.
Or game 4.
Or game 4.
Yeah, I guess. But in a short series, in a wild card series where it's best of 3, all on the road or all at home.
Right. We're also, are we making quite an assumption on Kyle Harrison's going to be part of a playoff rotation? The guy hasn't even made a major league debut yet.
Right. He feels like he's going to be here before the end of June or maybe before mid-July, I would imagine.
I agree. I mean, there was the, I don't want to call it a rumor, but I think the thought crossed everyone's mind when Cobb hit the IL, Harrison might be the one. Turns out he's not.
Who's going to start Wednesday?
Opener time again. It's going to be opener time
because
again.
that would be on turn for Harrison if they wanted to call him up.
If they wanted to call him up, yeah.
That would be his turn.
That's the TBD.
Right.
Right, but Wood is back. You got Webb. You've, you had Walker do the opener. You got DeSclafani. But, there's no off days in there. So it could happen that fast. It absolutely could.
Yeah.
But I'm not giving him game 2 yet.
No, of course not.
Come up and have control of the strike zone and be good.
Yeah, and I think the question you guys asked, which was a good one, was about the add versus subtract. And, I think Farhan basically said you don't have to look at things in terms of buy or sell because, right. I mean, they could buy and sell in the same trade. It doesn't have to be one thing or the other.
Well, and the best example of that was that Darren Ruff trade from last year.
Right.
Ruff was technically a quote-unquote sell, and they got 3 prospects for him. But then they also got a major leaguer named J.D. Davis, who's playing at an all-star level.
Right.
It's one of the greatest trades ever, by the way. My gosh, what a fleecing of the Mets that was.
So that was a buy and a sell.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be more of a buy
trade.
than a sell because you ended up getting Ruff back for a while. And then.
I know we like labels on things, but I think Farhan's tried to say that all along. He's like, we want to make good trades. So if that you want to call it a buy or a sell or whatever, if it's good for the organization in that moment, then the answer is yes. And gosh, one thing we don't do much is look at his trades. Look at how would you grade him as a trader?
Oh, amazing. Amazing.
I mean,
it's hard to really grade him unless you look at all 75 trades that he's made.
Right.
And, look at in terms of wins and losses, but I would imagine his wins are far, far better than his losses.
Yeah, well, and I can't think of anyone that he shipped out where you're like, oh, damn it, I wish we had him back. But Lamont Wade, that was a trade. Mike Yastrzemski, that was a trade. The Chris Bryant thing was fine. It didn't burn you by any stretch. The rough one that we just mentioned, and then, as you said, 1,000 other tiny ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's been way, way better on the thumbs up than thumbs down. Let's go to Charles in South City. What is it that we're watching? What is it that is connecting you now suddenly to this Giants team? Charles, you're on with Willard and Dibs. What are you doing?
I'm over here listening to you guys. I'm going to the game tonight. And
see you there.
For taking my call.
Yeah.
What was that?
I said, see you there.
Oh, where you sitting at, Willard?
Well, let's just take it easy now. In the ballpark. No, text, DM me, Charles, and I'll, then I'll let you know where I'm at.
Anyway, I want to talk about how this team's doing. From Bailey throwing out guys at second and third, that guy is. I'm loving him behind the plate. The fan base, that was loud. Just watching on TV last night, I heard it, and I thought to myself, like, wow, to think Bonte almost gave up on his team. I know he had a look on his face like, wow, I've never heard this crowd in a long time. And just watching Schmidt take a walk, watching everyone click on all cylinders, it's money. I'm loving it. And I just can't say anything else about this team. I'm loving what we're seeing, and this could possibly be a playoff contender. Who knows? But that's all I got to say. Thanks for taking my call. And who knows? See you there, Willard.
Oh, let's see you there, Charles. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Yeah, that's that's the thing. You could point to a bunch of different things. And look, it's when he says, "Hey, I can't believe Bonte almost gave up on this team." None of us felt good about this team like 7 weeks ago. How could you?
Right.
They're coming off a 500 year. They were losing more games than they won. There wasn't anything that was terribly, terribly exciting about it. And but now here we are. But let's not act like this means it's a done deal either. You want to know something that grabbed my attention? Do you want to know what last year's team was after 72 games?
Yeah, I actually looked at it. They were 46-26, I believe.
No. Last year's team.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Last year's team.
Oh, yeah. No, 2 years ago they were 46-26. The 107 win fluke team. Last year they must have been, probably below 500, right?
No, they have the exact same record that they do right now.
40-32?
No joke.
Last year?
So it can go a different way. And I see you, Graymond Dreen, on YouTube, who just said, it is so funny that Willard thinks this team is any different from last year. I think it's hilarious that you don't. I think it's crazy. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to go win 90 games. But how on earth can you look at this team and tell me this feels in any way like last year? Even when they won last year, you're like, what do we have here? I'm sitting there watching with people who, don't work in sports radio, and they're like, who are these people?
Right.
Who's Austin Wins? What is this? What am I watching? And now you've got Patrick Bailey, the first draft pick of the Farhan era, who just shows up and he's hitting from both sides. He's getting clutch ninth inning ABs down by a run. He is playing insane defense behind the dish, and you're going to tell me that this feels and looks like last year? Come on. Don't be disingenuous. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's a ridiculous take to think that this year and last year have anything to do with one another.
This year looks a little bit more closely resembling 2021 to me in terms of the inexplicable nature of how they've done.
Yeah.